have a question for him, and it has to do with astral traveling, because he says that when you travel, you know that you were there. I remember I've said this before, Rhonda, that I went to the Orient, I got onto a ship, it went underwater, it opened up really quick, and I was somewhere else. And I remember this very vividly, and I said, this is real. I knew this was real. And the ship was full of people. And I know it was the Orient because of the way they were dressed.
Exactly, and it's because that the primary way to the next realm is within, and that actually works externally. Let's say in the reality, in the center of the core of the planet is the gate. That's what's the bottom of the pyramid reaches, because the pyramid is equally as high as it is below, and because of where it is on the meridian, it touches that point at its base. And that becomes the symbol, which is basically a three-dimensional Maltese cross of how spirit comes into matter. So when you see the images that are written, the glyphs show the spirit coming forth into the day. And the spirit is basically moving from the underworld into the world of what we call the living or the daylight. And then it takes on the matter, which is sprayed onto it by the sun. And then and the rest of the cosmic bodies that are used to compose that person. And the weights and measures of that govern what they call their zodiac sign. And that encases them with the traits that equal their personality. And that's their character that they generally act out in this movie until they realize that the world is a stage. And instead of just being an extra, they should at least go for the good part and then start realizing how to become multifaceted, multidimensional. But for sure, that's what those kind of experiences begin to lead the person to, because even while they're experiencing it, others are around, or other spirits are around, other spaces and the essence that's there. If we understand how to absorb that, even we can go even back to those moments, really strong moments we can go back to, because they're signatures in time. That's why when a person dies, they see the significant moments in their life, because that's where there is a spike in their wave frequency. Everyone's frequency, everyone's a sound. So when an amazing situation happens, for better or for worse, there's a spike, and they can recognize those situations from those spikes or signatures. And so a person can time travel in that way and access that space, what was there, the energy, the writing on the wall, etc. So for sure, it's a real thing. And it's great that we're starting to figure it out.
Thank you. Thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here with the family. We really enjoyed all of your conversations.
You're more than welcome. I thought it was absolutely amazing. Like, I'm over here like, I can't mess this up.
You know what's so interesting about that travel is that, when you go underwater and you go deep, you usually have to wear, oxygen. We didn't need any of that. We didn't have any problem breathing underwater.
Well, that's because another body was being used, because the pressure that's put on a person, whether they go too high, because remember the same thing happens. You go too high or you go too low, you generally need a suit. And this is because that's how it locks certain kind of bodies out of that realm. But once you're using the other body, then you can actually go, and you don't need to utilize what is called oxygen as your primary form of living. And, it just takes on a whole nother body. So that's how we know that we lose the concept of this body, and we jump immediately into another one that operates another way. And then also to realize, and the last thing about this, which would be an injustice not to chime in, is that, see, below sea level is the netherworld. And you'll see that on the Sumerian diagrams of the world, and also even in some of the Cometans, if you understand what you're looking at. But what controls it, actually, where the space is the density of the water. So many people don't realize that they're actually underwater now. If you take obviously a dehumidifier and you put it into a room, you're going to get all this water. So we're breathing in water now. It's just the thickness of the water. And that's why the deeper you go into the ocean, you get into real ma'at, black goo, because it's super sentient. And it's so mineralized, and so every rock that's ever hit this place, every meteor, billions of years, everything that's ever hit the water will reach the base of its vortex or its point and congeal there. And so that's why it's so powerful there, is because it contains so much essence. It's sentient on its own. So it's so fertile, even when some egg or seed or whatever is dropped into it, if it reaches that level, life is given to it. And then that life, which is large, because most of the entities that are in that level of the deep are so large, they begin to expand, and in themselves, they become the land masses that later on future generations walk on. But they'll walk on it as if it's not alive, even though acknowledging that their mother lives. And that's the madness. Like they always say, oh, the earth is alive. You see these trees growing out of it. Nothing dead could have something grow out of it. But we need to see it. When third eye open and you get on a really high mountain, you start seeing the large life form, and you see it breathing, and you see it morphing and camouflaging itself as everything around us, even if it's cars, just to not scare us into what it really is, because it's everything. And anything that we make and anything that we create, it will live through. And that's the deep, like nothing you see around you, I don't care what it's made out of, was not pulled from it. And that's why it says, you cannot give anything to me, because where would you get it? And you cannot take anything from me, because where you would put it. Where would you put it? You will put it right back into me. So, and that's the next level, because that level is not in the level of scarcity. It's like, it's a whole nother level of power. It doesn't even, there's no limit to its power. And what we're doing is we're prepping ourselves for that experience. So whether it's the ayahuasca, whether it's the crazy dream, the lucid sleep, whether it's the jail sentence, whatever it may be, all serves for the spirit to reach the stage of its old